Good evening. I left my hammer in my office, so let's call this meeting to order. It's Tuesday, December 19th, 2017. Time is 6:32. Roll call, please.
Storr. Here. Summers. Here. Tinsley. Anderson. Here. Clemens. Here. Coert. Cruz. Here. Esri.
Here.
Furtado. Here. Goss.
Here.
Harper.
Here.
Hartke. Here. King. Here. Marsh. Here. McGuire. Here. Michaels. Here. Mitchell. Here. Patterson. Here. Petrie.
Present.
Rector. Here. Rosales.
Here.
Weibel.
Here. We have a quorum. Okay, tonight's prayer is a Christmas blessing. May peace and goodwill, prosperity and plenty, joy and satisfaction abound in your homes and in your hearts this day and all days. May opportunities for good work be many, and may you avail yourselves of them all. May your sorrows be lightened, may your griefs be assuaged. May your souls be fitted for what they must endure. May your backs be strengthened for your burdens. May your responsibilities be met. May your obligations be discharged. May your duties be performed. May love abound more and more until the perfect day breaks in your lives. In short, every wish that would be helpful, uplifted, and comforting, I wish you at this hour and all hours. In the words of Tiny Tim, God bless everyone. Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would the clerk read the notice of the meeting, please?
Notice is hereby given that a regular meeting of the County Board, Champaign County, Illinois, will convene on December 19th at 6:30 p.m. in the Lyle Shields Meeting Room, Brookins Administrative Center, 1776 East Washington Street, Urbana, Illinois, in said county for the purpose of allowing and ordering payments of claims against the county, receiving and acting upon reports of committees, and such other matters as may be brought before said meeting, which said meeting shall continue in session from day to day until the completion of said business.
Thank you. Seek approval of the agenda and the addenda. Moved by Mr. Rosales, second by Mr. Esri. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Date and times of our next regular meetings. I'm pleased to announce the county facilities meeting is canceled. I'm not pleased that ELUC is not canceled, although I tried. That will be on Thursday, January 4th at 6:30 in this room. Highway and Transportation will be on January 12th at 9 a.m. at the Highway Building. The COW meeting will be on January 9th, very early this year, Tuesday at 6:30. And the regular county board meeting, also early, will be on Thursday, January 18th at 6:30. Is there any public participation? I've not received any information stating that anybody wants to speak. Okay, we'll close that. Move on to the consent agenda. Are there any items you wish to take off the consent agenda? Well, nothing to take off. So, motion to approve the agenda, the consent agenda. Moved by Harper, second by Mr. Mitchell. Roll call, please.
Storr. Yes. Summers. Yes. Anderson. Yes. Clemens. Yes. Cruz. Yes. Esri. Yes. Furtado. Yes. Goss.
Yes.
Harper. Yes. Hartke. King. Yes. Marsh.
Yes.
McGuire. Yes. Michaels.
Yes, but may I abstain from the item that includes my name as the appointment? Or can I vote? You should pull it off. Consent agenda.
It's consent agenda. You can vote on that.
Yes. Mitchell. Yes. Patterson. Yes. Petrie.
Yes.
Rector. Yes. Rosales.
Yes.
Weibel.
Yes. Motion passes. Mr. Hartke's in the room. Would you like to vote on the consent agenda? Okay. Note that, please. It's unanimous and therefore passes. Next is communications from the board. Mr. Anderson.
Just one communication. It's on each of your desk in front of you referencing the art fair. On Sunday, February 25th, between 1 and 5, the Friends of the Champaign County Nursing Home will host an open house entitled Art Fair, featuring art and artists from the local community, including those residents and those people who use the adult care program. So you're all invited and hope you can attend.
Thank you. I want to point out each of you should have a flash drive at your desk. That's a gift from NACO. I didn't get one for some reason. Oh, you stole it. There's extra. You can keep it. Just a second. It will have some NACO information on it, which you probably can erase if you want to. The other thing is this photo list, and would you explain that, please, Deb?
For this session of the county board, we have not yet had a county board photograph, so we are scheduling that for the February county board meeting, February 22nd. The group photo will be done in this room at 6:15. However, we would also like to have individual photos of each of you to post on our website, and if you have one done, you can have it and use it for your own business too. So the photographer will be here from 5 o'clock till 6:15 on the 22nd. This is a sign-up sheet to sign up for a slot to have your individual photo done during that hour. If you can't be here then, you can also make arrangements with the photographer to go to his studio and have an individual photo done there. So we want to pass this around so that you can all sign up, okay?
Are there any other communications from board members?
I have one.
Mr. Rosales.
Since this is our last meeting of the year, I just wanted to basically announce that January 12th, we have the MLK celebration at the Vineyard Church, and I would like to see everybody there. It starts at 4 o'clock. This celebration is basically dedicated to the children. So there'll be grade school children that will be bussed in from local Unit 4 and Unit 116. They're going to be performing, and it's going to be a wonderful event. So that's my announcement. Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, let's move on to seek approval of the minutes from November 21st, 2017 regular meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Rosales, second by Mr. Goss. Discussion? See none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Standing committees, ELUC. Mr. Esri.
Thank you. I move to approve resolution number 10166, authorizing Champaign County participation in a joint application for an Illinois Housing Development Authority Land Bank Capability Program grant with the City of Urbana, the City of Champaign, and the Village of Rantoul as lead agency.
Second by Mr. Anderson. I'll point out there's a new resolution on your desk, which I believe Mr. Esri reads from. And discussion. Mr. Esri.
I was just going to point out we do have Mr. Hall in the room for more technical questions. Do have some points I guess can make too. This is kind of short notice on especially the revised resolution. Well, that's because it's ultimately short notice because we're trying to, if we decide to, the grant application is due in January 15th, when you can first start applying. And as most people know, the quicker you can get in and get applied, the more likely, hopefully, you'd be to get approved. Definitely doesn't help if you're late. This is just it could be used to offset the costs. If this grant was approved, it could be used to offset the costs of creating and operating land banks, including applicable administrative expenses such as staffing and overhead costs, as well as costs related to the property acquisition, demolition, and redevelopment. Long-term for unincorporated Champaign County, land bank may be a more efficient means of disposing of dangerous structure properties after we clean up the property. Currently, we have 2 of those such properties that a land bank potentially could help dispose of. Rantoul, Champaign, and Urbana are definitely interested in it, having us be a partner with them. But as stated, Rantoul would be the lead agency now. The proposed grant will include the following tasks: conducting a feasibility analysis for a land bank, developing operational plans for a land bank, and provided that the operational plan is self-sustaining, initiating land bank activities. And there's other discussion points too, but if we such care to discuss it, and again, could have Mr. Hall come up, I'm sure.
I have a question for Mr. Hall. John, could you describe a theoretical, an operating authority for, say, the land bank is set up?
Well, big picture land bank could be responsible for acquiring property.
I mean, who actually is functionally? Who's going to be there to say, buy this, sell this, that sort of part?
Well, whatever is proposed in the business plan and the 4 jurisdictions agree to, which I think is a challenge on this. But, for example, Vermilion County has already set up a land bank, so they have worked through those issues already. They have a working land bank that acquires properties and redevelops them. They have a half-time permanent position dedicated to that. But a land bank is such a new thing to me that based on what I've heard so far, Chair Weibel, I would anticipate that would be the hopes is that would be a new personnel position that would be, multiple positions completely supported by the income from the land bank, operating under rules that all the member governments adopt.
Think there would be a multi-municipality board, a multiple entity board overlooking?
I don't know about having a multiple board, but there will have to be rules established.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
And the whole point of having it self-sustaining is there would be no money provided from any of the jurisdictions once this, after the initial startup period, which this grant would support if everyone decides to go that far with it. After that, the intent is this would be completely self-supporting. And that's what all the jurisdictions are interested in. They're not interested in establishing new burdens on their tax dollars.
Okay, are there other questions? Mr. Storr.
Sir, what acquiring properties can also include liability. Would there be a preliminary environmental safety and study before acquiring properties, because we don't want to incur a lot of liability from environmental issues?
There will definitely have to be those studies. I think, I would expect the decision to incur any liabilities would probably be part of the decision about any property. Each jurisdiction has their own reason for wanting a land bank. And, I can imagine some jurisdictions would be happy to get rid of problems, provided it's done in the right way.
Ms. Petrie.
Well, I think that's the reason we have this resolution in front of us, and is to get the answers to some of these questions that have been posited and what will work well for the entities that have stepped on board, and maybe the villages will join on, and there's no cost to the county to have this exploratory information brought to us. So it seems to make a great deal of sense to support the resolution.
Mr. Marsh.
When we acquire property through a tax default, would that fall into this realm, and would the cleanup of that property be part of the cost profit of the land bank?
I believe it could, but I think there's going to be a long-term need for the tax sale process for other problems also. Certainly not all the tax sale would be replaced by this. Only those properties that really have the possibility of being put to a whole new productive use, like the dangerous structures properties that the county now owns, those did not go through a tax sale. they probably would never go through a tax sale, and that's one reason why I think this land bank provides some opportunity. It would be hopefully a way to get higher prices for those and get them sold quicker and back on the tax rolls.
Other questions? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? No. Motion carries. All right, thank you, Mr. Israel. Let's move on to finance. Ms. Michaels.
I have adoption of resolution number 10185 authorizing payment of claims.
Director, discussion. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Next, I have adoption of resolution number 10186 authorizing purchases not following purchasing policy.
Second by Mr. Ezra. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Next is adoption of resolution number 10187 authorizing the issuance of approximately $1,076,760 taxable 2017 nursing home purposes tax anticipation warrants in anticipation of the collection of taxes levied for the year of 2017 by the County Board for Nursing Home Fund purposes and the sale of said warrants to Hickory Point Bank and Trust.
So second by Ms. Colert. Discussion. Mr. McGuire.
I'd like to make a motion to defer this the first meeting in January.
There's a motion deferred to January. Second by Mr. Ezra. Discussion. Ms. Petrie.
Several information questions. If the deferment is passed, are there any financial hardships on any of the funds?
We don't believe so, no.
So doing it in January is no different than
That's
doing
correct.
it right now. Thank you very much.
Further discussion. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. No. Oh, okay. Furtado. Ms. Furtado votes no. Okay. Thank you. Mr. King also. Okay, we have a couple of no's. It still passes.
Yeah.
It was a voice vote.
Okay. Next
All
up.
right.
Ready? Adoption of resolution number 10188 authorizing renewal of loan resolutions numbered 9892 and 10097 from the Champaign County General Corporate Fund to the Nursing Home Fund.
Is there a second? Second by Ms. Petrie. Discussion. Mr. McGuire.
Would also like to defer this motion to January.
Is there a second? Second by Mr. Goss. Discussion on the motion to defer. Ms. Petrie.
I have similar questions. Are there any long-term financial concerns of putting this off to January? Thank you.
We don't know. Okay. The answer is no. I think she just nodded her head, shook her head, so. Yeah. All right. Further discussion. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? No. Motion still carries.
Next up, adoption of resolution number 10190, approving agreement between the Champaign County Board and AFSCME Council 31 for the Nursing Homes Nurses Unit, January 1, 2017 to December 31, 2018. I'm sorry, I skipped one. I went to number 6.
We'll do number 6. Is there a second for number 6? Second by Mr. McGuire. Discussion. See none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Back to number 5.
Now back to number 5. Adoption of resolution number 10189, approving agreement between the Champaign County Board and AFSCME Council 31 for Nursing Home General Unit, January 1 of 2017 to December 31 of 2018.
Second by Ms. Petrie. Discussion. See none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Michaels. Let's move on to policy person on appointments, Mr. Rosales.
Okay, in your desk you have On your desk, you have the yellow revised copy of the adoption of resolution number 10191, establishing a county executive style of government transition team.
Before it's second, I'm going to point out that my selections for that are Patterson, Summers, McGuire, and Goss. I will chair the committee. Is there a second for that? Second by Mr. Hartke. Discussion. We won't meet until January. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Rosales.
Welcome.
New business. Highway, Ms. Cowart.
Okay, Highway did not have a meeting in December, but we have one item for new business, and that's the adoption of resolution number 10192, awarding of contract for the furnish and delivery of aggregate material for the 2018 maintenance of various road districts of Champaign County, and that's so moved.
Second by Ms. Michaels. Discussion. Mr. Blue is here if we have questions. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Ms. Cowart, there's a number of items on the addendum. Why don't you do those right now, too?
Okay, item number 2 is the annual rural transit service report for FY 2017. And
Ms. Keller will present that now. Zoe, you ready? Almost showtime.
Okay, so per the bylaws of the Rural Transit Advisory Group, every year we give an annual report in December for the previous state fiscal year, which is July through June. So tonight we're talking about fiscal year 17. C-Carts now provides 2 types of service. Our traditional demand response that we have been providing since the inception of the service in 2011. And just this past November of 2016, we initiated the deviated fixed route in Rantoul. So I'll start off by going over the Rantoul deviated fixed route, since it's our new project. This service operates Monday through Friday, 5 a.m. to 8 a.m., and then again from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. Then between 8 and 3, we do still provide the demand response service within Rantoul and to and from Rantoul and Champaign-Urbana. This consists of 2 parts. The Eagle Express is 3 vehicles that travel around just within the village of Rantoul. There are 40 designated stops, and that means that a bus is at each stop relatively close to every 25 minutes. Some major destinations along that route include the industrial park employers, Walmart, downtown Rantoul, the Village Municipal Building, the Multicultural Center, and the Youth Center. The fare for that is $2 one way or $1 for seniors or persons with disabilities. The second piece of that is the Rantoul Connector, which meets the Eagle Express at Walmart at specific times during both the morning and the afternoon shifts. The fare for that is $5 one way or $2 for seniors and persons with disabilities. Major stops on the connecting route are Fountain Valley, which is the mobile home park in the southern portion of Rantoul. Then it swings around to Walmart in Rantoul, the Round Barn Center, Illinois Terminal in Champaign, Carl Hospital, Presence Medical Center, and Lincoln Square in Urbana. So it does hit all 3 of the main MTD transfer points. The idea being that people from Rantoul are able to come into Champaign-Urbana and make the connections that they need to get to their ending destination using MTD. Part of this feature for the Americans with Disability Act is that we do deviate the route for people with disabilities, and to do that, they still do need to call ahead, like the demand response service. If I'm moving too fast, let me know. I don't want to take up too much of your time.
Go ahead, Ms. Petrie.
You have a matrix here on, I think it's the second page. Is that going to be one of your slides? And I'll hold my questions till then.
Yeah, once the presentation is over, I'll go into a little more detail with the report that's in your packets.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So this is a map of our Eagle Express. This is just the portion within Rantoul. You can see where each of the designated stops are, and we kind of hit every section of Rantoul. And the northern portion of Rantoul tends to be a little bit more walkable, so the stops are a little bit more spread out once you get up there. And then we do hit all of the major employers in the industrial park. This is an overview of our ridership since the deviated fixed route, began in November of 2016. The orange bars there are fiscal year 17, and I went ahead and included up to October just to fill out the year, so that you can see that our ridership is steadily increasing. The gray line there shows you for each month how many of those rides were just within Rantoul. I do want to point out that not included in this chart is November of 2017, which was actually our highest ridership month at 959. So we're very happy to see that success.
Do you have any explanation between April and May? That's a very respectable jump there. And then August, September goes up and then goes back down in October. And you just said November spikes as one of the best. Do you have any way of knowing what are the drivers behind that?
So for May, the culprit for that was an advertising campaign and a little bit of public outreach that we did. We also held a public meeting around that time. So I think that there was a little bit of an increase, and I don't have the service days with me, but I think there may have been just more actual days that we provided service. They're not all uniform between the months.
Yeah, but they are between April and May, and that's 220. I mean, that's a good jump.
Right. So the advertising campaign was going on. We put out yard signs, and Rantoul put some information on their website at the beginning of May, and I think in March and April, I think that their village administrator at the time said that there was some employment. There was a little bit of a dip in employment in the industrial park, and that is a driver of our service there. So that's the information that I have. Beyond that, I think that there are some natural fluctuations in ridership that we can't always explain. I would ask Drew if there's anything else.
I'm Drew Bargeman. I work with MTD.
Use the microphone, please.
Sorry. My name is Drew Bargeman. I work with MTD, and I'm helping to manage this program from the MTD side. We do see a natural dip after May. School lets out, and so anyone that's riding for either if they are employed by a school or if they're riding to get to school, those types of trips seem to tail off for the summer. And then that's kind of why they return back in August and September. You see that peak beginning again. And what Zoe mentioned about between April and May was accurate. I mean, that was there's a campaign with yard signs, with some radio spots, with flyers that went out. I believe the village sent flyers out with utility bills and things like that. Try to get the awareness with the service out there.
Well, I'm still quite impressed. That's a good jump. And Are you going to do that randomly again to see if that kind of marketing continues to be that effective? And if so, then how you can develop a pattern, a steady pattern with the people in that area, because that's a nice convenience. The map looks well laid out to service those folks.
We just recently had another meeting with the village as we're entering the second year of the 2-year contract, just kind of strategize some, come up with some ideas on how to kind of move forward with that.
Mr. McGuire.
I guess along those lines, and I've heard you got a new administrator too. That's probably the reason for the jump in November. But and with that, the other issue would be the buy-in by the employers and funding, and is the increase in ridership also helping the bottom line too, and how that all fits in your.
I'm sorry, could you ask that one more time, please?
So are you getting more buy-in from the employers to help support the ridership, and also is the increase in ridership helping the cost of the?
Sure. The village has been working more closely with the employers than we have, so unfortunately I don't necessarily have that answer for you. And as far as like fare box revenue, I mean, we have seen that improving. Anytime you have more people riding, that would increase that. So that is supporting the service a little bit, yes.
Mr. Anderson.
Thank you. Just narrowly, what percentage of your capacity does this represent? Because you're dealing with short time frames, morning, afternoon, and you only have so many seats. So take the big number of September, for example. How many seats are left on the transportation vehicle? And are people having to take one later or before just to get a seat? Sure. Thank you.
Anecdotally, we haven't had any vehicles that have been full to capacity, so that we did turn someone away. Capacity is kind of a tough answer to give, because when you look at it throughout the course of a 30-minute loop, people are getting on, people are getting off, and so those seats become available and they're not. So it's kind of difficult to completely judge that. I think the last time we calculated some of this, I think it was somewhere in the 15 to 18% range being the utilization, and that's just looking at how many seats you have per go-around with the 3 vehicles. And so that has been a few months ago before some of these larger spikes, so that number could have changed a little bit since then.
All right, Zoe, you want to continue?
Thank you. All right, then we'll talk just a little bit about our normal demand response service. The basics are that the fare structure is $1 for children 12 and under who have to be accompanied by an adult, $2 for seniors, $2 for persons with disabilities, and that would be someone who's registered with C-Carts in that fashion. Within the Rantoul Township High School District, it's $2 one way, and then all other trips are $5. The hours of operation for that are Monday through Friday, 6 to 6, except for the 6 holidays, federal holidays that are listed there. This service does still require a 48-hour call-ahead reservation time frame, and then the overview for fiscal year 17, this is for the entire service, demand response, and the deviated fixed route, with the exception of the items with asterisks, because we don't track those demographics for the fixed route. That being said, our total trips this year were just a little over 21,000. Our average daily trips were 82. Trip denials were just over 1,000, which is up a little bit from last year, and those were mostly in the first quarter. We'll look at that in the service report, actually, which is in your packets, but we did see a decrease in those denials throughout the year, so every quarter we were lower and lower. And I think we had a bit of a driver shortage in the first quarter, which kind of limited our capacity there and unfortunately caused some more denials. But still, we're sitting at a 6.4% denial rate of requested trips. We only denied 6.4%. And part of that is the fact that we still do lack intelligent transportation system software, which we will be mitigating this coming fiscal year. Our trips per mile were 0.05, and trips per hour were 0.94, which are pretty similar to last year's numbers. Our trips per hour are a little bit down, and that's normal for initiating a fixed route service until the ridership picks up a little bit more. So that's not alarming. The lift use is 12.9%, and the senior trips are 31.7%. The registered riders are sitting just above 2,500, and that's a 12% increase from last fiscal year. Also, that doesn't include necessarily riders that are using the deviated route in Rantoul because they don't have to register. They obviously just, if they're at the stop, we pick them up. Okay, and then here's a chart of our total ridership. You'll see that in November, I've started to break it down by our traditional demand response and the deviated fixed route, so you can see kind of what role that plays in our total ridership. Again, the first quarter was a little bit higher, and then as people are getting used to the new service, it dipped just a little bit. And also part of that dip, those winter months just generally are a little bit lower in ridership because people don't want to stand outside and wait for the buses. Just an overview of our transportation budget. For fiscal year 17, we had a total of $922,671. Our federal portion stays the same year to year, and our state portion, the allocation increases 10% yearly, but in past years, IDOT had advised us to inflate our budget to spend down the entire allocation, which just wasn't realistic because we're still a relatively new service. And so this year, partially due to the Grant Accountability and Transparency Act, they started to advise a more realistic budget. So the FY18 budget, you'll notice, is a little bit smaller, but it was based on actual expenditures from previous fiscal years. Here's a quarterly breakdown of some of the demographics and data that we collect. The first quarter, before we initiated the deviated fixed route, employment was the major trip type, and after that, medical kind of took over, which leads us to believe that the Rantoul services has taken on a lot of those employment trips, which is good to see. Just kind of basic information, nothing really surprising here. It has pretty closely followed trends from previous years, but I do like to lay that out just so you can see the quarterly activity. A quick vehicle inventory. We currently have 12 vehicles. We have one minivan and 11 of our 14 passenger buses. The minivan is ramp equipped and all of the buses have lifts. The average age of the vehicles is roughly 2 years. We have a really new fleet. At peak, we have 8 vehicles in operation, including the vehicles in Rantoul. We do have 2 super medium duty buses, which are 22 passenger vehicles, ready for delivery in 2018. We're not exactly sure when they'll be there, but they will be serving that Rantoul connector route. And then this year, we implemented some new strategies for survey collection. We shortened the onboard survey, made it just a half sheet front and back. We included an online survey option and completed a phone survey. We got 30 onboard surveys, 6 online responses, and 6 phone surveys, which was a 24% response rate for the phone. And so that might not be done next year just for time purposes. But we did incentivize the surveys, so anyone who completed a survey and chose to leave their name and phone number, they were entered in a raffle for a free round trip with C-Carts. So that seemed to get some people excited. We had some people asking to check up on when the drawing would be. So we did receive 42 surveys. And with those, medical was the main trip purpose, followed by employment, which is pretty typical. And interestingly, the survey results really closely mirrored our ridership, so I feel like we got a good sampling. 29% of the respondents said that they wouldn't make the trip without C-Carts, which lets us know that we do provide a service that a lot of people depend on. And a lot of them, the people that mentioned using the taxi as an alternate, they did mention that the taxis in Rantoul are very expensive, which I've heard anecdotally also from people in the area. And I apologize, the number on the dark blue portion's not, it shows up on the screen but not on the projector. So that is a 36% that use the service 4 to 5 days a week. When you combine that with the 2 to 3 days a week, 2/3 of our ridership that responded to the survey use this service more than once a week or frequently throughout the week. We ask the respondents which of the obstacles they face and if they face any obstacles that we didn't list. 17 out of the 42 indicated no obstacles, which we like to hear. Out of the 21 people who did respond, there were 25 obstacles that they identified. Most of them were hours of operation and reservation time frame, which they all left comments in how we could better provide service for them. And they were asking for increased nighttime hours for work and better availability for those like next day trips. Then we asked them to rate on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being not great and 5 being excellent. The timeliness, attitude of the driver, attitude of the dispatcher, ease of finding information about the service, ability to connect to other transit options, affordability, and ease of scheduling rides. And so we consistently again see that scheduling rides is an issue, as well as connecting to other transit options. And that may be a combination of the difficulty that they experience finding information about the service. This is a breakout of the satisfaction. We asked overall satisfaction, and there were 5 respondents that said they were unsatisfied. So what I did was I broke out how those 5 respondents answered the satisfaction, or the how they rated the different qualities. And so we can see that ease of information and scheduling rides were the main detractions, which is consistent with the overall scores. But again, these significantly brought those numbers down. So I thought it would be nice to see if they were unsatisfied, specifically what those problems were that they were experiencing. Again, like I said, some of the suggestions were extended hours during the week, especially evening hours for those who work second shift, weekend hours, especially Saturdays, availability, just schedules being tied up when they called to make a reservation, better scheduling, and one person said they wanted to bring back the door-to-door service in Rantoul. All right, then the last item that we have is an exciting thing that we've been working on. In the past annual reports, we've said that our biggest limitation is the lack of ITS software. This year, Drew and I did some extensive work on a group procurement with Macoupin County as the spearheading agency. We selected CTS software to purchase from and worked with IDOT, bothered them a lot for funding for the project, and finally obtained some funding for it, so that's exciting. We have a capital grant with them that we recently received extra funds for, and that's actually the next agenda item, so I won't get too much into it, but this is going to help us improve the efficiency and capacity, as well as kind of those scheduling issues that people are experiencing, and with that, the customer experience. So we're pretty excited about that. If there are no questions on the presentation, I'll go through. Okay, there is a question on the presentation.
Yes, I have one question. When you had a slide that was sort of representing the mileage that you put on a quarterly basis, the amount of hours, I did notice that you have some denials, and on the first quarter, you had 453 denials. What criteria do you use, or rubrics do you use to deny an individual a ride, especially when there's that many?
Do you want to take that, or?
So IDOT defines a denial. So if someone calls us and wants to request a trip, I'm just going to use an example, 8 o'clock in the morning, and that time slot has already been filled with all of our vehicles, that would go down as a denial. Alternatively, we're able to offer them something within an hour before or an hour after. If that works for their schedule and what they're trying to do, then it would not go down as a denial. But if for some reason that's not something that they can make work, or something like that, then that would be counted as a denial. And as Zoe kind of mentioned, in that first quarter, we were going through a little bit of a shortage on manpower for our operators. And so we were having to run fewer vehicles on a normal basis for a little while. We were able to get some of those issues worked out into quarter two and the rest of the year. So that's part of the reason for the pretty steep decline of the number of denials from that point on.
Great, thank you.
Are there other questions at this time? Ms. Petrie.
To the question about denials, it's not broken down here. Do you have the statistics on whether or what the numbers are for demand and deviate?
For demand and what, I'm sorry?
And the deviate routes?
So we don't deny service on the deviated route.
So this is all demand?
Correct, yeah. And they're almost all that the time they requested wasn't available, but there are some denials that people aren't familiar with the advanced reservation time frame. And so there are a number of denials because of the user requesting a ride for the same day or the next day.
Okay.
Dwyer.
Yes, what was there, 1,000 last time? I think you were here when we discussed that, the denials. You don't have to look it up.
You're talking about last
And now it's down, it's down to 400, so that's good. And so the 48-hour, the grant you're going to talk about, you'll talk about more on how that works with the intelligent design or whatever. You'll go into that now, have some impact on it also, bring a number down.
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm interested in hearing about that.
Thank you.
Are there other questions?
You only pick up and drop off at those designated stops. If the individual sort of lives a block further down, especially if it's a senior citizen that has difficulties with walking, do you drop them off a block away, or you drop them off at the designated stops, and you only could do that and pick them up?
With the deviated fixed route, we do only pick up and drop off at those designated stops. But that is why Zoe mentioned the route deviations that are available. It has to be scheduled ahead of time, but it would be able to assist someone with a disability that's not able to make it to that bus stop. So that option is there. It just we would need a little bit of advance notice so that we could prepare for that.
And there's no extra charge in that?
There is a slightly different charge. The regular fare for the route is $2. For the route deviation, it is $4. Okay,
thank you.
Okay, why don't you continue, Zoe?
Okay. Then moving on to the service and fiscal report that's in your packet. The first table breaks out the trips by type and the lift and senior use. So overall employment, even though medical took over as the main trip type, for the entire fiscal year, employment was a little bit ahead. And again, that's not counting the deviated fixed route because we don't track that. So I did go ahead and at the bottom of that table, I included the total number of trips for the deviated fixed route, as well as the days that was running and a daily average. 28 was the daily average for the fixed route, and for the demand response service, 64 was the daily average. The next table talks about mileage and service hours. Those are pretty typical. The miles did increase a little bit, but overall the efficiency of the service hasn't been hindered by the inclusion of the deviated fixed route. So that's something that we've been monitoring closely to make sure it hasn't detracted from our service. On the next page, you'll find the fiscal report, which gives a quarterly revenue, which shows our project income from Farebox and our service contract revenue, which was from the Village of Rantoul, and I think one trip for the nursing home. And then a breakout of our federal funding for that fiscal year and how we spent that down throughout the quarters. And we actually did only spend down 54% of the funds last year, so that gives us some justification for why our budget for fiscal year 18 is significantly lower. The last page is the registered riders. That gives you an idea of where the ridership is mostly coming from. As no surprise to anyone, Rantoul is the leading village municipality, and it breaks it down kind of by zones in the county. Are there any questions on
that part of the report? Okay, is that it for report, or is there more?
That's it for that item.
Okay, Mr. Colbert, want to move on to the next item?
The next item is approval of a budget amendment for the state capital grant number CAP-14-1060-ILL, contract number 4490.
Is there a second by Mr. Anderson? Discussion. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
The next thing on the agenda is adoption of resolution number 10210, authorizing execution and amendment of downstate operating assistant grant agreement.
Second by Ms. Michaels. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Our next item of resolution is number 10218, authorizing execution and amendment of federal grant 5311 agreement.
Is there a second? Second by Mr. Rosales. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, Ms. Covert, and thank you. Zoe, may I mention something about your future? Unfortunately, this may be the last time we're going to see Zoe, because in January she's leaving us to go work for IDOT in Chicago. Yet another case where IDOT is stealing our employees. I want to congratulate you on your new job and thank you for the nice work you've done here. All right, back to finance. Ms. Michaels.
Yes, if I can say something, I serve on the committee that Zoe gives us all these reports, and I've got to say she's done a great job in a short period of time, and we're going to miss her tremendously. We had a regional meeting in Danville the other day, and she was very, very impressive in front of our other collar counties here. So thank you very much, Zoe. Appreciate it. Yep. Okay. Finance, adoption of resolution number 10193, authorizing budget transfer 17-00010, Fund Department 083 County Highway to 060 Highway, with a total transfer of $100,000. The reason being to cover the remaining 2 payrolls due to the additional expense associated with an employee retirement and joint project with the city of Urbana. And Mr. Blue is here if there's questions.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Summers. Discussion. Ms. Furtado.
Since this is a significant amount of money, can you just explain the which fund it's coming from and which fund it's going to?
Mr. Blue, do you want to step to the microphone, please?
The money is all within the highway fund. It just, when we transfer money to personnel between line items, we can transfer money, but when we take it out of another area of our highway budget, we have to do this amendment. So it's all within the highway department. As you know, we did a joint agreement with the city of Urbana to employ a temporary engineer to oversee the Lincoln Avenue job. All that money is coming back to us via IDOT through the city of Urbana in our revenue. So it was unexpected revenue. This is an unexpected expense. So they balance each other out. The retirement was unforeseen. I had no idea this gentleman was going to retire until he walked in my office a week before Thanksgiving and said, I'm ready to retire. So that was very unforeseen. And obviously we have to make good on his retirement and everything that we owe him.
Other questions? We do need a roll call on that. Roll call vote, please.
Storr? Yes. Summers? Yes. Anderson? Yes. Clemens? Yes. Court? Yes. Cruz? Yes. Esri?
Yes.
Furtado? Yes. Goss?
Yes.
Harper? Yes. Hartke?
Yes.
King? Yes. Marsh?
Yes.
McGuire? Yes. Michaels? Yes. Mitchell? Yes. Patterson? Yes. Petrie?
Yes.
Rector? Yes. Rosales?
Yes.
Weibel?
Yes, motion carries.
Next up is adoption of resolution number 10194, authorizing budget amendment 17-00052 from the Fund Department 080 General Corporation to 127 Veterans Assistance Commission, with an increased appropriation of $4,702 and increased revenue of $3,702, and the reason being is there were donations received for the veterans assistance.
Second by Mr. Rosales. Discussion. Seeing none, roll call.
Storr? Yes. Summers? Yes. Anderson. Clemens. Coert. Cruz. Esri.
Yes.
Furtado. Goss.
Yes.
Harper.
Yes.
Hartke.
Yes.
King.
Yes.
Marsh.
Yes.
McGuire. Michaels. Mitchell. Petrie. Patterson. Petrie.
Yes.
Rector. Rosales.
Yes.
Weibel.
Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Michaels. Next up on our
Mr.
litigation.
Mr. Chairman, can
Yes.
I make a point of personal privilege, please?
Sure.
That was Ms. Michaels' last action as finance chair, and I just wanted to make that point and give us an opportunity to thank her for her long work on the county board and on the finance committee, and thank her for her because she will be coming off the county board, and I appreciate everything she's done for us, and I just want to thank her for that. Thank you.
Okay, next up on litigation, Mr. Rosales, would you move this, please?
Move the adoption of resolution number 10195, approving the engagement of counsel for the purpose of pursuing claims against opiate manufacturers.
Second by Mr. Hartke. We have several people here willing to talk about that, and perhaps Mr. Kroger, Mr. Bradley would come to the microphone. And we have Jacob's boss too, just to make the pressure a little bit.
Just in case.
Okay, if you do, please explain what we're doing here. Thank you.
We good? Okay.
You'll probably have to speak closer to the microphone, yeah.
The state's attorney's office for the past several months, and as the chairman is aware, the county at large has received information regarding potential litigation against opioid manufacturers for their role in helping to create the opioid crisis. And the state's attorney's office has had conversations with several different firms, including Kester and Bradley. Mr. Bradley and their firm have partnered with a couple of larger firms who have also signed on with different counties and state's attorney's offices in the northern part of the state, and are prepared to pursue that litigation against opioid manufacturers and their affiliates, including distributors. Based on their firms' local ties, knowledge of our community, and their experience with mass torts of this nature, none are exactly like this one, but our office and Ms. Reitz, the state's attorney, felt that Kester and Bradley were an appropriate firm to engage to pursue this litigation on behalf of the county. And the state's attorney's office has the discretion to engage the law firm, and Ms. Reitz has reached an agreement with the law firm, but given the significance of this issue to the county and the pervasive nature of the effects of the opioid crisis across the county, Ms. Reitz and Mr. Bradley have spoken with the litigation committee and are here tonight to discuss the litigation that we're prepared to pursue against the opioid manufacturers. I should have said my name is Jacob Kroger, Assistant State's Attorney, and with that I'll defer to Mr. Bradley.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for allowing me to come and talk with you all tonight. I'm not going to go very long. I've spoken with some of you before. I will certainly answer any questions that I can. Our firm, Kester and Bradley, is honored to be chosen by you guys in working with the state's attorney to pursue this cause of action. Champaign County is at the forefront of this litigation, I have to say. These lawsuits are very new. This is something where the proactive response from the state's attorney's office has been very substantial in interviewing a number of firms, and we're very pleased to have been selected. We're working with 2 other law firms, one called Simmons & Hanley, another one called Myers & Flowers, one out of Chicago, one out of New York, with an office in St. Louis. We are a sort of a litigation boutique firm in Champaign-Urbana. I hate using the word boutique, I have to say that. And we've been doing this for quite a while. We've had the privilege to work with the county before on some other issues, and so we're comfortable doing that. I'm just going to run down very quickly what this is going to look like from the county's perspective and answer the questions that people are inevitably going to have on their mind. First of all, it's not going to cost you anything. You've paid enough due to the opioid epidemic. Therefore, our fee is 25% of the recovery. We advanced all the costs of litigation. There will be some time involved. We are going to get into the weeds to figure out what exactly this particular situation has caused the county as far as financial harm. The financial impact of this epidemic reaches a little bit further than what people initially think of when they think of, okay, prison stays, naproxen, dealing with this, but it's deeper than that. It's putting coroner's offices into a position where they can't perform autopsies because there's so many deaths from this situation. It's also putting financial strain and pressure for internally for the county. Addiction is coming out of the shadows here, and people are understanding that this is a very major problem, and a lot of people deal with it. And some of those internal problems can be within the community, within the county organization. There's lost productivity time. There's healthcare expenses. So what we're going to do is bring in teams of economics experts and economists to come in and actually figure out and put dollar amounts on these things. It's not going to be easy. We're lucky that the county is also at the forefront of keeping statistics on these different things. As Mr. Weibel pointed out when we were at the litigation meeting, that's an advantage that the county already has. So we're excited to be working with you guys because you're at the forefront of what's going on. Across Illinois in the next couple of weeks, right in time for the Christmas holiday, we're going to be filing a number of lawsuits, including this one. Our organization of law firms is representing Piatt County, Kane County, DeKalb County, Cook County, and literally more counties by the day are reaching out to us. There's also, I know there was a 60 Minutes segment on this on Sunday because I got a panicked phone call from my stepmother that she saw something on 60 Minutes and she heard I was into opioids. From my dad, and I had to explain I'm not personally into them as much as I'm pursuing something against them. So this is all over the news. It's all over the media. It's something that there's going to be, we're optimistic, a significant recovery at the end of the day for the county to get back some of the money that we've lost. But we're also pushing for what's called injunctive relief, where we want them to change what they're doing. Going forward, we need more significant input from the manufacturers and the distributors so that we can address this process. So it's not enough to say, hey, we need some compensation for what we've already lost. We also want to move forward with different treatment techniques. We want them to step up and help treatment in an ongoing basis. So any type of settlement or communal resolve to this is going to involve those things. So I don't want folks to think that we're just going to get a check and then go away. This is deeper than that. It's going to be a long-term push to find a solution. And I think during the process, what's going to happen is there's going to be a lot of rocks that are overturned. There's already been many. It's all very public at this point, that the marketing campaigns that were used to promote these things, the flat-out lies that were told in terms of the ability of doctors to prescribe opioids on a long-term basis with no real addiction consequences and no real caps on the upper level of prescriptions. I mean, there's literature sponsored by these companies that says those types of things. So when you peel the layers of the onions away, it's a very deep problem. It's one that we hope we can help you guys address. And with that, I'd like to answer any questions you have.
Questions from the board? Ms. Cruz.
So just kind of in the description of how you're talking about this, is this going to follow kind of a similar path as like the tobacco master settlement, or is this going to, I mean, because this is counties, is the state going to get involved or multiple states? I mean, I guess kind of what's that kind of looking like?
Sure. I wish I had a finite answer to that. I don't. However, I would imagine that it's going to be a combination of everything you just mentioned. There's going to be a universal nature to this because there's no motivation or incentive for these corporations to settle piecemeal litigation everywhere. At some point, they're going to have to come to the table with everybody. What our approach does that's a little bit different from a, quote, class action or a pure type of format like that is that we are actually going to file an individual lawsuit on behalf of the county in Champaign County, and we're going to find the best venue to pursue that. It may be here, it may be Cook County. We're going to find the best place to pursue these actions. So by pushing these companies to trial and pushing them quickly, as an aside, we've done a lot of homework already. We haven't gone through discovery where we get to look at their documents yet, but we've done our homework on this case. We know what these guys did. We're probably more prepared to go to trial on this than they are at this point. Because this wasn't something that happened overnight. It's been sort of a long time coming. As far as a state action, there are a number of attorneys general that are already binding together in order to look into this. And there's lots of criminal situations where states are going after these companies on a criminal level. We're coming in at a civil level, and our hope is that we can expedite the process by which the county can get reimbursed and receive more incentives going forward by basically joining Champaign County with a number of other Illinois counties and pursuing it that way. At the end of the day, the federal government has federal subpoena power, and they can pretty much do what they want, and we intend on complying and participating and helping in any way that we can. But like you see in a lot of these types of cases, the private attorneys, the civil attorneys and trial attorneys that get involved oftentimes do very good investigative work, and we generally share all the information and try to push toward a solution. Important thing for the county is no matter what happens, your benefit is going to be secured. So if something were to occur where the Attorney General were to take over what we were doing, that wouldn't have any impact on you. It would be something that we would deal with, but there's no per se economic downside for the county. With that being said, we are going to have to do some homework, and the state's attorney's office has been great thus far and getting all the information that we need.
Ms. Furtado.
More just a comment and to sort of echo what you said about hidden costs. In our consent agenda, we have almost $23,000 that the coroner went over budget, and that was, according to what he was telling us at our last meeting, largely driven by the opioid crisis and changes in how they had to do autopsies. So the timeliness of you coming when we literally just voted $23,000 out of our general fund to cover coroner costs, I thought was worth noting.
Thank you. And coupled with the coroner's costs that are going up, one of the things that happens when there's a pressure point on a market and there's an increased demand for something else is now all of a sudden the nalproxone and the things used to treat this disease are skyrocketing in price. Hundreds of % increases. And the companies that are making these drugs to counteract this crisis are now reaping big profits as well, and that's putting a toll on a lot of other, particularly smaller counties. At some point, there's going to have to be some way to regulate the prices on the drugs that are used to treat this.
Mr. King, then Ms. Petrie.
Thank you all for coming and sharing. Had two questions, or one and a tag along. When you're doing your process of researching, will there be any disparate studies completed around either causal relationships between drug use, education, unemployment, or other sort of shortcomings in cities that could be shared later, or will that just be a part of the litigation process?
The data and the information that we are going to acquire during this process is going to be obviously proprietary to the county. And the state's attorney's office will be able to disperse that information as they see fit based on the standards of that. I could see where you're going and knowing the power of data. I don't see why there's any reason that again, sort of keeping with this standard of forward thinking, that the county could harness some of this data that we're doing and put it to other uses to see how different parts of the community are impacted by this thing, because it is different for everybody, and not everybody is impacted the same. And so it's an important thing to look into, and I think that's a really valid point. That wouldn't be something that we would be able to control. The data is ultimately the county's.
Okay, thank you. And the follow-up is, it's just maybe a doomsday side of me. If you are into the study, involved in litigation, and there are issues that potentially negatively impact the county, how do you disengage, or is that something you even anticipate happening?
I'm a little unclear on how anything would negatively impact the county. I mean, we have never run into that type of a situation. Okay. I'm not quite sure exactly what you're referring to, but if something, essentially the only thing that could derail the ability for us to work on behalf of the county and reach a resolution is some type of intervening criminal act, which we're obviously not anticipating. So that's really the only thing that would get in the way.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Petrie.
Thanks for more explanation than you gave us at litigation. Obviously, the major goal is getting money back into the county that has been spent out for various reasons. But I'm more interested in, besides that, more interested in what kind of policy changes do you think is potentially going to come from this suit? Because you can bring money into the county, but if we don't change policy and behavior, it just becomes a vicious circle.
Well, thanks. That's a great point and a great question, and that's why in our complaint that we're going to be filing, we are going to also be pushing for injunctive relief, which is causing the companies and manufacturers and distributors to do certain things to help the process. For instance, accessibility to treatment options, education, and things of that nature. At a grassroots county level, the ability to fight this thing is going to be benefited not only from the financial recovery, but also from what Mr. King said, the knowledge that we're going to gain in this process can be distilled down at a grassroots level and help organizations and programs that serve this particular need.
So then, in theory, this money that comes back into the county, some of it could be used for behavioral health and behavioral health center. Is that right?
Well, again, there are going to be constraints on how the county spends the money that we recover that are predetermined and built into how the county spends money. And we don't really have any impact or any say in what the county does with the money after we bring it in. However, there would not be anything legally that would prevent the county from reinvesting into education and treatment.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Mr. Marsh.
Just a comment and a question to follow. First, I want to thank Julia for her leadership and understanding the importance of this and working with these gentlemen and bringing them into the cause. I work with, I'm on a National Retail Advisory Board, and one of our major tasks is working with the Partnership for Drug-Free Kids. A mere 2 years ago, the motto or the emphasis they used to show how bad the problem was 9/11 every month, meaning we lost 3,000 kids under the age of 18, or 100 kids a day to opioid use. That statistic is way out of date now. In fact, about 50% higher than that. We're up to about 149 kids a day, or 4,400 kids, thereby emphasizing the importance to us and as all stakeholders in attacking this problem. So we're in great support of that. My only question for you folks is, what do you project as timing? Is this years? Is it weeks? I mean, you're fighting a massive amount of statistic collection and some of the richest foes in our country. Thank you.
I can guarantee it's not going to be in 2017. So we will definitely have to table this to another meeting when we're talking about accepting a settlement offer. With that being said, there's usually I like to underpromise and over-deliver, so I'm very pessimistic when I talk on time frames, and sometimes it can be 2, 3, 4, 5 years. However, in this particular situation, there is a very unprecedented amount of pressure on these companies, all the way from the White House down. So this is not something similar to the tobacco litigation where at that time it wasn't huge in the public eye. This is really huge in the public eye. And with the speed with which I'm seeing counties like Champaign and others come together, if in fact everything gets consolidated quickly and the dominoes start to fall, it can be under that period. But at the same time, what our group, one of the ways that we're a little different is we don't mind continuing to fight a little longer if it's going to benefit our clients more. So we're usually not the first groups to settle because those are not usually the best offers. So that's another thing. But again, this process is something that we are here to advise the state's attorney's office, and they know what they're doing. And so these types of decisions as to what to do about settlement, should we get to that point, are not ones where we're going to be dictating anything. We're just going to be, the rudder of the ship with the state's attorney's office being the boat.
Ms. Colbert, do you have a question? Okay. Anybody else? Okay, I think we're ready to vote. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you for your time.
Jacob, you did quite well. Tell your boss that. Okay, next up, Mr. Rosales, item D.
Move the adoption of ordinance number 997, amending ordinance 960, an ordinance establishing the Champaign County policy, personnel policy.
Second by Mr. Hartke. Discussion. This is an update to the sexual harassment part of our policy. Is following state statutes which changed recently. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right. Next up, we have other business. We have a special resolution. Actually, Ms. Michaels, would you move this resolution, please? Do we normally move this? Okay. We'll do that.
Adoption resolution number 10216, honoring the retired county board member Christopher Alex.
Second by Mr. Hartke. Normally we read these, so if you want to read part of it, then somebody else can take off, Ms. Michaels.
Happy to do that. Got it right here. Are you ready? Solemnly swear. The resolution 10216, resolution honoring retired county board member Christopher Alex. Whereas Christopher Alex was sworn in as Champaign County board member on December 6, 2010, and whereas Christopher Alex has served the citizens of Champaign County as a representative of the Champaign County Board District 9 from December 6, 2010 until November 30, 2012, and County Board District 10 from December 1, 2012 through October 3, 2017. And whereas during his tenure as a Champaign County Board member, Christopher Alex served on the following standing committees: Committee of the Whole, Finance Committee of the Whole, Highway and Transportation, Labor Management, Health Insurance Committee, and Labor Committee. And whereas from 2012 to 2017, Christopher Alex served in a leadership role as the Deputy Chair of the Finance Committee of the Whole, and from 2012 to 2014, Christopher Alex served in a leadership role as the Chair of the Labor Committee. And whereas Christopher Alex provided strong leadership on the county board throughout his tenure through objective and critical analysis of all issues coming before the board, and his ability to succinctly summarize complex and difficult issues with recommendations that were frequently instrumental in moving the board forward to action. And whereas the Champaign County Board seeks to publicly recognize the commitment and dedication of Christopher Alex, who served the citizens of Champaign County as an elected official over a term of 7 years, and during that tenure enhanced the county board's initiatives and accomplishments through his leadership, direct communication, and ability to forge strategic alliances for the improvement of county government. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Champaign County Board hereby recognizes the service of Christopher Alex and the benefit of that service is brought to the county government, and be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be presented to Christopher Alex in recognition of his tenure of service to the citizens of Champaign County. Presented, adopted, approved, and recorded this 19th day of December, AD 2017.
Thank you, Ms. Michaels. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Chris, you can say a few words if you want to.
In recognition of having served on this board so long, it will be very few words. I know what it's like. It's certainly an honor to be recognized, but it is nothing compared to the honor of having had the opportunity to serve with each and every one of you. It was an experience that I definitely appreciate having had, and I certainly thank all of you for your continuing service. Thank you very much.
Okay, want to do the next one, Ms. Michaels?
Certainly. Adoption of resolution number 10196 honoring retiring County Treasurer Daniel Welch.
Is there a second? I'll pick on Mr. Goss. He hasn't had one yet.
Okay.
All right. I don't think we need to read that since he's not here.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right. I believe there's no other business, so we're adjourned. Thank you. Enjoy the holidays.